Oh, you have a timer too?
I do. It's up to you. You can use yours. It's probably better to use that one.
It doesn't matter. Okay, hi, my name is Terez and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Terez.
It's really, really good to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. One of the last things that my sponsor said to me before she passed a couple years ago was, you should get asked for a service sponsor. So that's what she was talking about when she was talking about learning. I'm going to be learning things about concepts and traditions. So anyway, thank you so much. I did it, Janice. I have my father's big book here. I just feel like he's with me. So that's why I brought this up here. So what it was like, what happened and what it's like now in 30 minutes, 29 minutes. I did grow up also in an alcoholic family, but I didn't know that. We were the Leave It to Beavers. And my parents were, successful. My father was an officer in the military, commander, and they were fun. They were beloved. So when I was growing up, drinking just didn't seem like a bad thing. I mean, they had it under control. They partied hard. They worked hard. I'm sure my father was very careful because he'd had to fly and, they test him and stuff. My mother would get a little snotty when she drank, a little confrontational. But as I got older, and I have older brothers and sisters, I'm the youngest. I don't think any of my siblings who grew up in the 60s even tried pot. So I'm definitely the odd one out. And I'm a little bit later than the rest. But as I got older, I partied with my parents. They were my best friends, really. My mom was my best friend. And when she would get crappy, I'd just get crappy right back at her, and we'd have our little drunken tiffs. But we did a lot of stuff as a family. We went camping, we went fishing, we went hiking. They were very present. They taught me a lot of amazing things about honesty and integrity and showing up, and that family comes first, and you always show up for the people you love, and a lot of really positive things. But they too came from a different life than a normal person might. And what they didn't have was like emotional intelligence. In my family, it was all about grit. It was about not showing any weakness. Don't show any vulnerability. You don't cry at a funeral, you buck up. And they did it as supportive. This is a way to make it. I never heard my parents argue. I never heard a raised voice. I knew nothing about any kind of confrontational handling of that kind of thing or resolution of disagreeable things. I knew how to leave. If anything got uncomfortable, I knew how to leave. We couldn't even slam a door in my family. It was all leave it to Beaver. And a lot of it was, but it just didn't allow for any kind of personal growth at all. And what I learned from that, and my parents always said, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, but they would talk terrible about themselves if they made a mistake, or, they were bad. And so I learned by example that, you just don't make mistakes. And if you do, you don't share that. You cover it up, and you don't ask for help. You do it yourself. And so those were kind of my tools. And I started drinking the first time I ever drank was, I don't know, I think it was in middle school, and I drank at a function, and paramedics were called because the girls I was with were probably normal and needed medical attention while I did not. We had chugged a whole bunch of hard liquor, and I was pretty much fine, a little drunk, but that's the kind of drinker I was from the get-go. I didn't touch it again for a year because I was on a year's restriction. And I had a horse at the time, and we lived out in the country, so that's all I did. But then when we moved every couple of years. My siblings were all gone by now. I was in high school when we moved to Arizona, and I started high school. And that's when it really took off for me. And drinking was a lot of fun for me. I'd grown up seeing it as fun. It's what you do when you party. I didn't realize, I was very social, had a lot of fun. I didn't realize how terrified I was of who I was until I got sober. And all of a sudden I'm trying to socialize sober. But for a long time it worked for me. And I thought it did. It didn't really, I went to college and in 5 years, I quit and ran away to cooking school, a few credits shy of graduation. But I was partying once this is the kind of stuff I would do. I was partying once at a jacuzzi in Scottsdale, where my university was in Arizona. And I came out of a blackout, because I went into a blackout at said jacuzzi, in an airport in LA. And I was speaking German badly because I was so uncomfortable with who I was and how I'd gotten into this mess, which I didn't remember. I just knew this is not good. That I was pretending to be an exchange student. And that's why I was in this, ridiculous predicament. And my German was not that good. So, it was just ridiculous. And people were trying to help me right and left. And, my brother finally, he lived in California. I called the one in Arizona and he said, "What are you calling me for? You're in California. Call the other brother." So I called him and he came and got me. But, and that was just, oops. And I did that kind of thing a lot. And I just was charmed. God was taking care of me because I should be dead. I was also a high risk taker. I'm gonna pass my water. I took a lot of risks. I like to bungee jump and skydive and cliff climb, and I think all these things. I did all these things because I think it's the only way I could really feel. And so I took a lot. I did take a lot of risks, and I know that something must have really been watching out for me to be standing here. I went to cooking school after university, which I didn't graduate from. Thank you, Dad, for all that wasted money. And I partied all the time in college. And then I got a job on a private yacht. I married the captain. We were engaged in about a month. I married him in under a couple months anyway. And we sailed around the world for 10 years. Now I was the chef. I purveyed all the alcohol. I had to taste all the wine. The owner of the ship would send me to wine tastings. Oh, it was just the perfect job, and I didn't have to drive. I didn't drive a car. So I was in this cocoon where it was my job to party. I just had to stay sober enough to do my job. And that was fine for a long, long time. 10 years it took us to circumnavigate the world. And the only time that I so lucky to be alive. I was coming home once at 3 a.m. in the dinghy, which is like a 19-foot rubber dinghy on this huge yacht, by myself, drunk. It's really windy, really stormy, and the dinghy ran out of gas. And I thought, oh, no big deal, because it ran out pretty close to shore. I'm being swept that way, but the whole harbor's full of boats. I'll just grab a boat, knock on it. Well, the boats are freaking huge, so you can't grab them anyway. I went by every boat, and I'm getting pretty sober. It got really scary. There was nothing to row. I don't know if I could have rowed anyway because it's such a big dinghy, but I was going out to sea. And I could not, I'd get to a boat and I'd tap it and I sobered up kind of quick. And then I knew I was going out to sea. And at the very mouth of the harbor was this huge training ship for naughty Polish boys. And they had someone on watch. And he heard this lady screaming, "Help, help!" And he came out and saved me. And these were young boys who were sent away because they needed, to learn some responsibility and probably get away from trouble. And I took him a bottle of champagne as a thank you. I'm a chef. I could have taken chocolate chip cookies. I could have, a lot of things. But I took this underage boy a bottle of champagne to say, I could just see the captain, shaking his head. But, I just didn't think like a normal person. It was just all about having fun and partying. But it was later after we went around the world, and Antigua was our home base. And it is a progressive disease. I tried a couple times to stop on the trip, and I couldn't. And I decided, okay, well, I'll just be a really cool little old lady with purple hair and a Harley. And who cares if I can't stop? But by the time I got back, I wasn't having fun. There's no way I'd be riding on any motorcycle. I could barely stand when I drank. I was shaking. Every morning, I would, this is really gross, but it helped me. This helped me. I would vomit up in the morning. The first time I took a sip, I would vomit it back up. This really fine wine that belonged to the owner that I purveyed was always now a little mixed with vomit, and I'd have to do that a couple times before it would even stay in my body. And I couldn't wait any longer for the afternoon or for night, and I didn't go anywhere anymore. A little Miss Social Butterfly. I was afraid of what I'd do. I came home once, I had like 32 bruises, and I have no idea. I was still a blackout drinker. And people were getting angry with me, and that had never happened in my life. I was pissing people off, and I didn't know why. And I'm spending all my time trying to find out why without anybody knowing that I can't remember, and I'm trying to find out why. It was exhausting. And a couple of friends from another yacht, a couple of chefs came over, and they took me up on the bow of the boat. It still makes me emotional. I haven't spoken to them since I got sober. One of them I have, but the other one I just lost. But they sat me down and they said, we're really worried about you. They said two things. One, your husband is really a jerk to you. You should leave him. And two, you need to do something about your drinking. We're really, really worried about you. We love you when you drink too much. And it just stuck. It stuck. And so, a month later, we got to Florida, and I picked up the phone and I called a treatment center. And I was shaking, my voice shook. I mean, for me, my body was shutting down. It was done. I don't know if I could have gone longer physically, but I knew before I picked up that phone, that phone book, that shows how old I am. Before I picked up that phone, I really related to our first speaker when she talked about, do I want to live or do I want to die? I had to sit and think about that for a few minutes. I wasn't really sure. I think the main thing was I didn't want to die the ugly way I was living. And I couldn't comprehend another way to make myself do it. So I said, okay, I'm going to live. And so I went to my first meeting and to my treatment center thing, and there was a group, and there were 13 of us, and they told us, with statistics, probably one of you will make it. And I remember looking around going, oh, you poor people, because there's no way I'm not making this. I was just so determined. And, that was fear and arrogance with an insecurity complex. I heard that when I came in talking, because it really broke my heart that none of them in that group did make it except me. And that is just the way it is in this program. Sometimes it could be just a killer, and I've experienced that with a lot of people. But they said to me, go to a meeting. And so I went to a meeting, and they said there to get a sponsor, get a home group, work the steps. And so I did that. I got a sponsor. I got the first one I asked said, see me in 90 days. And I thought, I'll be dead in 90 days. Are you kidding me? So there are different ways to do the program, and her way was different. It wouldn't work for me. And so I asked somebody just completely opposite, a really sweet old lady. And she took me to a Joe and Charlie that weekend, Joe and Charlie workshop. So I did 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. And then the next week I did 5, and it was like boom, 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 because any moment we were going to be leaving the country. And I really wanted to get through those steps. But the Joe and Charlie thing was amazing. It gave me an incredible foundation. And I would say things later in sobriety, and I wouldn't know where it came from, because I was still really befuddled when I went to that thing. I mean, I was befuddled for a while. But I would say things like, the guy that drank the whiskey and the milk, well, he didn't go out then. He went out before, when he said it wasn't a big deal that he fought with his boss because he was the owner. And I mean, there were all these little things about the big book that I remembered later. So I was really, really grateful for that. And my first 4th step was a 1.25 pages. And it was just, it was the little columns. That's what I was capable of. I mean, I see women, writing out these whole long things, and I think, oh my God, how can you even know that? How can you think that much? And I could glimpse at those things I was putting on that list. I could take a peek at them, but to write thoroughly about them, I mean, I'd nearly killed myself not allowing myself to see those things about me that I thought made me bad, bad, bad. Not enough, no grit. Somebody's going to know you're not good enough. Don't show any weakness. That did not come easy, but it was a huge relief. I went through the, list with her. It took not that long. And at the end, she said, okay, what did you not put on the list? And I told her something that I was super ashamed of, the thing I was ashamed of most. And she laughed. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Other people have done things, or she has done something as bad as I have. People laugh about this stuff. And people were laughing in meetings about stuff that I thought would kill me if I looked at it clearly. And then I knew I was in a safe place. I remember that one of the first things I saw on the wall was they had the promises on a meeting, and it said they had, you will know serenity, you'll have peace and no serenity, or no peace and have serenity. That's what I wanted. And lack of fear, that's what I wanted. When I first got sober, I thought I was shy. And because I was crawling out of my skin, just so uncomfortable all the time. And I wanted a social life, and I wanted to have fun. And I was so scared of what I would say, and how I would say it, and would it be right, would it be wrong, and would they like me, would they not? I never even cared before. As a matter of fact, I did things to, I think I smoked cigarettes when I smoked, just to, weed out the people who didn't love me enough. I pushed people away. And now I was like, oh, come here, no, get away, come here, no, get away. I just didn't know what to do. And this was where I learned. This was where I grew up. I grew up in AA. And we were in Florida. I did the treatment thing. They told me you had to leave your husband, quit your job, and move into a treatment center. And I went and told my sponsor this, and they said, what? Really? Your first year? Is he beating you or doing anything? Are you going to drink because of this? And I said, no. And she said, I think you ought to wait a year. You might do those things, but you will do them differently. And so off to Italy we went. We moved to Italy. And I was in AA there. And I was at my last meeting almost a year later. It was on a year that I got on a plane and came home and hired an attorney, by the way, to divorce him. But I did do it differently. I did it with compassion and love and empathy and understanding. He didn't want it, and I knew I was hurting him. I stood firm, but I didn't do it with resentment and anger, and I would have if I'd done it before. And I learned that from a woman in the program. And then I learned from another woman and another woman how to do it. I don't know how to do this. You do it with dignity. You do it with grace. They taught me how to put one foot in front of the other when scary things happened. And I was at my last meeting in Florence, Italy. I always tell this story, but it's just so cool. I was in my last meeting in Florence, Italy, and everybody was saying goodbye. It was the first time I believed people when they told me that they cared about me. And everyone was saying goodbye, and this man stands up, and he goes, hi, my name is Bert, and we're from Seattle. That's how he talked. And we're going to take care of her. Don't you worry. And he gave me his card. And his wife was my sponsor for the next 26 years. And they were like second parents. She had a shower for me when I got married. He's the one that came down and said, you need to have a bottle for your father because you're not having any alcohol at your wedding and you don't want him taking you down. I would have never known that. They give a little sip to an alcoholic so he can walk his daughter down the aisle. I just wouldn't have even thought of that. They helped me grow up. When I came home, it is a progressive disease. My parents were different people. My best friends had been drinking the whole time I'd been sober. And I went to Janice one day and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't like them and I want to be with them and I don't know how to do that. And she taught me. She taught me how to set boundaries with love, how to show up for them for the right amount of time and allow the right, she was a black belt in Al-Anon and an AA, but I learned how to love my parents because of this program. They did get sober. My father was 79. Sorry. My mother was 72. They had maybe 13 sober years before they died. And that is an amazing thing. My children got to see them sober. What's it like now? I was 20 years sober, I think, when I pulled into my garage and I thought, if I leave the door down and my window open, I don't have to do this anymore. I never have considered a drink since I got sober, but I have considered suicide. And that's what I thought about when I got sober. That's what I knew the decision was when I got sober. And I just don't think I would waste my time with that alcohol. If I'm done, I'm done. And so I went, oh my God, I just thought that. And I picked up the phone and I called Janice. And we worked the steps hardcore before she passed in both programs, Al-Anon and AA. And she helped me. She helped me see my parents through their passing, say goodbye to my siblings. I learned to detach with love. I have had amazing relationships with my core family. She said, "Oh, goody, core family issues. You're finally there. We get to deal with them." And I thought, well, what have I been doing? She said, "You get to find out who you really are." And I thought, wow, I thought I was doing that the last 20 years. And she said, "You were. That's why you're ready for this." So there's always another layer. There's always something else. And I held both my parents' hand when they died. I was there for them. I was able to walk through that with them. I was able to do the last 2 years, which are absolutely, walking parents through that is, it's hard and it's a lot of work. And, she would say things like, you are you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a friend, you're a sponsor, you're a sponsee, and you're a daughter, and you're doing 90 daughter. What about the other stuff? Just things that I would not have seen. That's part why I was in that car that day. I was just not looking after me, looking after everybody else. And I learned how to do it different. And I learned how to not feel guilty about that and know that I'm enough. I am enough. The first thing I really connected to was insecurity, an egomaniac with an insecurity complex. I saw when I got sober that I had a sense of entitlement. And what I discovered was that released me from having to have faith in myself, from having to be accountable and having to try and fail and maybe not be good enough at something to, win the Pulitzer. But I had a lot of judgment. And so if somebody else just took care of it, then I didn't have to think about it. I think one of the greatest gifts, absolutely, that I have gotten from sobriety is my, step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic. And I always wanted, I always knew something was out there. I just never felt connected to it. My first sponsor said, "Well, you can't feel anything. That's, of course you don't feel connected. You have to learn to feel again." And she said, "Just keep working the steps and it will come to you, and keep exploring." And so I did. I explored. I went to tons of different kinds of religions and churches, and I envied people that, just had a religion and it was just like a to-do book, like the big book. I thought, God, I wish I could do that. And I tried. I just didn't connect in the same way. And then I was in a meeting and some guy was talking about meditation. And I went up to him and got his number and got the meditation teacher's number, and I married him. And she is still my teacher, my spiritual advisor to this day. And that was almost 30 years ago. But that set me out on a path. And I think it was in meditation that I learned to really, and it's only because of AA that I opened my heart enough to be able to do this. This was woo-woo in my family. Sitting around a group of people cross-legged, doing the ums and walking around quiet. That just would have been too weird in my family. So I had a complete open mind about spirituality. I knew that there was something and I just wanted to be open. And so I started going to spiritual retreats, and I found another teacher after that teacher. And I learned to look way inside, see what is challenging for me, what I don't like about me, mistakes I've made, reasons I tighten up or have sort. Look underneath it, see me clearly without a whip in my hand. I had never done that. See, without judgment, without anger, and everybody else the same way. Once I did it for me and started doing it for me, then I saw other people more clearly and was able to have better relationships. But learning that process of clarity. That is what I believe spirituality is for me. It's clarity. And I see things more clearly now. And when I don't, I have people in my life that I can trust that aren't going to blow sunshine up my skirt. And they can tell me things in a way that it's not mean, it's not confrontational, it's not to hurt me. They're helping me grow. I have people in my life, because I'm in AA, that their purpose is to help me grow, and my purpose is to help them grow. And so we can say hard things to each other, and it isn't an insult. It's, oh, thank you. Wow, I didn't see that. Or I'll explain something in this huge, great detail, and it's like I have this big old story, and I'll go, oh, you're feeling blank. Oh, yeah, I am. And I just don't see it sometimes. But I have the people around me now that do see, that do have clarity, that do help me walk through things. And I worked the steps with Janice for that last time to deal with the core family stuff. I wanted to make an amends to one of my siblings. I felt like I needed to make an amends. He wanted an amends for me to be able to be allowed back in the family. And so I knew that if I made this amends, everything would be okay. And so, I did the steps and along with her, and I said that's too soft and fuzzy. I need to go back and do them in AA. And so we did them in AA. And, I discovered I didn't owe an amends. And I wanted to use my amends process to have, it wasn't honest. I knew that that's how I could have my children be invited to these functions again, and have, to have it be all looking good, and to be loved again by my beloved siblings. But I had to stand in my truth, and I couldn't cop for something that wasn't mine. And I saw so clearly when I looked at our family that would be me if I hadn't worked the steps. It's scary to look at ourselves. It's scary for me to be accountable. It's hard to not blame other people. It is. It's so much easier to, oh, he did that to me, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was easier. Now it's impossible. And I also cannot cop to somebody else's stuff. I just can't. And I've learned to allow people the dignity of their mistakes. And I think the hardest that is for, and I just want to share this little thing that Rachel left out of that story. The hardest that it has been for is my children. This is, I think, runs in families. It definitely runs in my family. And my son was using very heavily at that time. And, his parents, I can't get away with anything because I got sober parents. It sucks. So he didn't spend a lot of time at our place during that time. And I knew that Rachel was drinking. And I don't know if I should be saying names. I'm sorry. But she saved my son's life. My son loved her. He had a place to go to talk to somebody, and he couldn't do it to me. And at that time, I knew, I was so grateful that he had her. And I knew what was going on in that house. It didn't matter because I'd been there too. I get that. I know that. My house was a great place for kids to come. People loved coming to my house because that was my parents. And she probably saved my son's life. Because after that, he's been in children's on a strap down. He's been at Providence with Code Blue. I've almost lost him a couple times. And this is a perilous disease, but I have people in my life that help me. And so that was very magical. That's a little bit like Italy, when I looked down and I saw, oh my God, because I kind of recognized her, but I see so many people in AA. I just thought it was somebody I knew from before. So that was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And those moments I see now. I see those moments, those God moments, and I've had a lot of them in sobriety. I'm going to do this really quick. In sobriety, wow, I have divorced. I've remarried. I've had cancer. I've had, 5 miscarriages. Henry is, I just said my son's name. My son is adopted in family. and I had my own. We've been really wealthy, flying around first class and living in mansions, and we've been homeless and on food stamps in sobriety. And I have died. I had a near-death experience up in the mountains in China. God, I don't recommend a Chinese hospital in the middle of nowhere for anyone. But all of these things that have gone on in our lives have, this is what you can do when you're sober. This is what you can do. And every time something really difficult happens, that experience with my siblings rocketed me into a new place spiritually. I mean, shrooms were my favorite drug. And I'll admit that. I loved them. But I have in meditation gone places like I did then. I mean, I hate to plug meditation like this, but it's true. I mean, there are it's so amazing to me. And there's this thing in the big book. My husband quotes it all the time. I want to find it real quick because I marked it, that I want to read about AA. It is a way of life. The challenge contained in its principles is great enough to keep any human being striving for as long as he lives. We cannot outgrow this plan. As arrested alcoholics, we must have a program for living that allows for limitless expansion. And I did not get sober to be a glum lot. That's in the big book too. We are not a glum lot. I did not get sober to be miserable. And I know I have I don't want to be here anymore switch in my brain. And so the opposite of that is, oh my God, there is amazing. There is still and always will be something in me that says, well, I don't really feel like doing that. That makes me feel good. So why would I do that? So sometimes I have to force myself. My birthday is March 1, 1995. And, I still have to watch out for, I don't feel like doing that. Oh, maybe I'll just go online because I don't really want to see anybody. Or, that's how I ended up in that car. All of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I'm not meditating every day. I'm not going to meetings. How long has it been since I called Janice? I hadn't seen it because I can still go la, 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 closed eyes, closed ears. I can still go there. But the opposite of that, it's just so cool. So hold on tight. And I don't think it matters what you find spiritually as a result of these steps and working with others, because that is so cool. My sponsees keep me alive. I don't think it matters what you find, but go for it because it's absolutely amazing. And I think the other amazing gift I have in this program is that I really believe that I am a part of a huge collective. I spoke last week, and I swear to God, I felt Janice just flow through me. I got tingles all over my body, and I usually get terrified when I talk. Inside, you can't really tell because I'm so good at the mask. But I wasn't, and I'm not. Something clicked. But I'm part of a conduit, and that collective voice, every time I talk to a sponsee, I hear Janice or Harriet or, all these women that I've heard in every meeting and every speaker and that have given their time to me and to everyone. It's an incredible, huge fountain of love and knowledge. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Terez.